There is a constant tussle between good and bad both within and without any individual, and it's imperative that we remember good will always prevail. This theme is strongly evident in the overall message and the struggles of the main characters and their struggle with the forces of good and evil. This theme is the core of human morality and the constant tug of war between both sides of the coin. The main character, Atticus, a lawyer, is faced squarely with humans' propensity for evil when he represents an innocent man in a rape charge. Humanity struggles with good and evil daily. This struggle is the core of our existence. To his surprise, after appealing to the good in the hearts of the jury and the court, the guilty verdict was passed anyway. Prior to this, he believed all people had the potential for good and that this potential will always prevail regardless of how much bad threatens to overcome them. He taught this ideal to his children, Scout and Jem, who grew up to also think like their father. This was up until they were made to witness the wrong verdict passed on the innocent man charged with rape and battery of a white woman. They too expected good to prevail and the right verdict to be passed, but their faith in the capacity for good in all people was crushed. Sometimes good will not prevail, but you must not lose hope yet. Their town was smack in the middle of the Depression era and was in the famed racist South region of the United States. This influenced the verdict greatly as the defendant, Tom Robinson, was a black man. This realization that so many people preferred to kill an innocent man because of the color of his skin shook them to their cores. This event almost shifted their minds to entertain evil, but their struggle ends when they are faced with the great evil in the form of Bob Ewell, who tries to kill them, and they are saved by an ultimate good in the form of Boo Radley. The ideals they were raised on hold that good and evil are in a constant struggle, but good will always prevail eventually, and that they should always hold out hope that it will. In today's world, we are also faced with this struggle, and it seems like bad has the upper hand, but like in the book, if you are patient, good will prevail. To nip the tendency to be bereft of morals in any individual, make sure they're properly educated. The struggle for good and evil is often helped along by certain factors, and chief among them is education. What an individual is taught to believe is true will go a long way to affect how they think and behave in their lives moving forward. It informs their perspective of the world and guides their mind to affect their behaviors. A good education is a gift and a literal enlightenment, but a bad one is a deadly weapon of ignorance. Ignorance is a very deadly hamper and can be used for the furtherance of evil. In the book, the eldest child, Scout, is ahead of her classmates in school because she had been homeschooled by her father. Her teacher is clearly angered by this and forbids her from learning anything from home altogether. This action shows clearly that even though the things Scout was taught were correct, the world preferred that your knowledge was institutionalized and not education that encouraged free thought. Institutionalized education is bereft of any kind of morality. It doesn't foster the goodness in the individuals nor put at bay the evilness either. Atticus offered his children a different, healthier version and approach. He truthfully answered whatever questions they had and encouraged them to not shy away from being inquisitive and asking questions. He treated them as adults so they can grow intellectually and morally, knowing the difference between right and wrong and knowing why they should always do the right thing. But this would sound like a disorganized system to those who operated institutionalized education because they believed there should be limits and certain topics should not be discussed altogether. It also conflicts the moral standpoint of whoever is delivering said education, as is seen when Scout's very racist teacher, Miss Gates, says something as horrible as the Holocaust could never happen in the U.S., but she believed firmly that the blacks in America deserved to be taught a lesson. Institutionalized education does more harm than good and fails to raise morally sound individuals in society. A home education doesn't guarantee this also because it depends on the quality and intention behind it. An evil parent cannot instill virtues or good morals but can only give what they have. But in an ideal situation, as in the case of Atticus, a morally sound home education trumps institutionalized education in every aspect. An education bereft of morality is wasted and lacking in much-needed knowledge. Social inequality continues to be a great problem amidst people, oftentimes earning them the wrong treatment by virtue of their social class. The great gap between individuals is yet another tool that is often exploited by evil and its agents. Throughout the book, a social stratum is obvious and adhered to. There are folks who fall higher up in the classification and those who fall much lower. As is common with humans, we tend to judge people based on their societal standings and not by their value as humans. Today's world categorizes people by virtue of their social class instead of their value to society. This is evident in many occasions in the book, especially Scout being refused from befriending Walter Cunningham, whose family was considered to be too low down the social ladder. This classification disfavors the black community even worse because they are considered lower than the lowest white family in the town, and as such associating with them will definitely be prohibited. Scout struggles to see why a person should be judged by the family they come from or their place in society, and believes a person should be judged based on one content only, morality. Her father thinks so too and was able to raise his kids in that light. He too didn't believe a person was defined by his surname or history but by their own present moral value to society. All people should be treated fairly and equally regardless of their societal standings. Today's world also exists in this subtle yet glaring social structure, this disparity often the yardstick by which people are ultimately treated. Meaning that no one is treated the same by virtue of their families or name. The book helps show that each person should be treated equally regardless of where they are from or the color of their skin. This isn't debatable and it rings true throughout the scenes. We should adopt this mindset also and do away with the bias society has laid out for us to follow. We are to respect each individual the way we would like to be respected, giving them equal treatment and not doing so based solely on their position, rank, or origin. Good in our own hearts should be preserved and nurtured at all cost. The book's title is also a theme that resounds throughout the book. The characters first encounter the Mockingbird theme when Atticus buys air guns for Scout and Jem and gives them strict rules on just what they were allowed to shoot with it, with the Mockingbird being out of bounds for them. When he is asked why, Atticus says the Mockingbird doesn't cause any harm, they aren't pests in any way. He proceeds to say it is a sin to kill them because they do not truly constitute any harm in any way whatsoever. Although he says this, he really is speaking about the truest form of good in all mankind. He uses the mockingbird to signify a good person, or at the least the manifestation of good. Adding that to kill a good person, someone who had done nothing wrong or harmful to you or anyone, is in fact a great sin. It is a great sin to stifle the good that resides in your heart. An example of a mockingbird in the book is Tom Robinson, the innocent black man accused of raping and beating a white woman, Mayella Ewell. He is innocent of these charges but is convicted anyway and killed. This in effect means the townspeople committed the great sin of killing a mockingbird. Every day, society kills the content of good in us, systematically pushing us toward evil. Seek to always preserve good in all its forms, never letting it become forgotten or erased. If good existed in the form of a person, then you must protect them from any such unlawful judgment or unfair persecution. Good and good people, like the mockingbird, should be held in high regard, protected at all costs. This same goes for the good in our hearts also. It should not be left unprotected and easily influenced by the surrounding evil we are facing every day. We must endeavor to see life from the other person's perspective in order to gain new understanding. One way to ensure we truly safeguard the good in our hearts is a shift in perspective when we deal with others. If we are to ensure that good prevails, we have to learn to cultivate empathy for others. This means taking a walk in the other person's shoes to see life just how they see it too. This way you are able to appreciate your own lot in life and be grateful for it. To truly appreciate the next person's life, we must shift grounds and attempt to see life from their perspectives. In the book, whenever Scout struggles with understanding Jem, Atticus encourages her to try to understand how he might have perceived a situation instead. This way she was able to understand him. This also helped broaden her horizon as she would go on to apply this advice to all her interactions with people she'd meet. When we are faced with people whose perspectives differ from ours, we should regard it as an opportunity to learn from them, not to judge them from our position. One of the causes of conflict is misunderstanding. The cause of religious clashes, tribal wars, and conflict as large as wars can be traced back to a refusal to see things from the other person's point of view. We can avoid a lot of bloodshed if we take more time to listen. When you are able to see things from the other person's point of view, you'll be less prone to having conflicts with them. If everyone adopts this tool when communicating or trying to understand others, there will be much less need for clashes of egos even. Racism makes it much more difficult to live for an already socially marginalized few and must be kicked out by all. One hurdle in the desire to treat all people equally aside from social strata is a deeply destructive feeling of hatred for people because of their racial origins. This hatred is known as racism, and it is the belief that one race is superior or inferior to the other. It has done so much harm to the races that are regarded as inferior. Racism believes that one race is better than the other, which is awfully untrue. This theme is a major one in the book as it ties in with the social status with which people were treated already in their town. Owing to the era in which this book was dated, in the Depression era when blacks were greatly marginalized and relegated to the background like common animals. They were not allowed to mix with white folks in public settings, even in places such as the court of law. The blacks were segregated to a great extent, even to the point that intermarrying was prohibited. Racism is such a strong theme in the story portrayed especially in the trial of Tom Robinson. Being a black man made it much more difficult for him to get any real justice. He was killed based on the color of his skin, adjudged to be guilty simply because of his race. Even when the evidence was in his favor, he still didn't get justice. Racism is a tool for effective segregation and persecution of the minority. But not everyone in the story was of this mindset. Atticus and his children believe strongly in racial equality. But they only constituted for a minuscule number in the population and are unable to affect any change in the townspeople's mindset of racism. This theme also ties into the struggle with bad and good, with racism being the bad and those who believe in racial equality being the good. In the book, we can see that bad seemingly wins against good, but Atticus urges his children to not lose faith in the fight for good. We too should never lose hope in good and to continue to strive to do and be good. Bravery in the face of great injustice is the only way to effectively tackle it. To tackle the issue of inequality and social injustice, one must be brave and daring because it is a daunting task to even consider. Only a brave soul can effectively tackle these societal woes even in the face of criticism and violence, even threat of death. Atticus had to defend his client even though he was a member of a marginalized group greatly looked down upon and racially persecuted. It was definitely a feat of bravery to back someone who was an obvious target. He faced many threats, including a rabid dog and an angry mob. In all this, he didn't waver or cease in his fight for truth, justice, and equality. The only way to truly combat the problem of injustice is to show bravery in the face of trials. He never once responded with violence even when violence was directed at him or his family. He believed withholding violence was the highest form of bravery. He instilled this ideal into Scout and Jem as well, to be brave when they are faced with the threat of looming dangers. Regardless of the situation you find yourself in, you must always be brave enough to confront and ask questions. As you proceed to work toward a change, you must be brave in your endeavor, not giving in to the pressures of persecution. It will be rewarding in the end, when you show bravery in the face of injustice. It is imperative that one is armed with the laws that would be or are made in line with upholding basic human rights. The greatest tool in the arsenal of those who wish to combat social injustice is the law. The legal statutes that can aid in the fight against these wrongs should be something you should arm yourself with. Knowing which laws protect you is a great weapon in the war against social inequality. The theme of law is centered mainly on Atticus, who is a lawyer, and the trial of Tom Robinson. It is shown to be capable of great good and yet great evil. The law can be used to one's advantage, and it can also help to uphold the rights of the innocent. It was evident in the case of Bob, who is allowed to hunt even out of season, which is against the law, but he's permitted because it's the only way his family can feed. And another example is the case of Boo Radley, who killed Bob Ewell in self-defense and was supposed to stand trial, but the law was bent to favor him since it would be harsh to expose him to public scrutiny and humiliation. The law is there to help many who are disadvantaged and if upheld, can do much good. It can be used to combat the ills plaguing society such as racism. Atticus, even though he believed in upholding the law, believed that certain occasions exist that require bending the law as well. Thus, cementing the propensity for either good and evil in the power the law possesses. Good doesn't always prevail, but it shouldn't deter you from doing good regardless. Did you know? The struggles of the characters represent the ones we face daily, and we can mirror their growth and come out of our struggles just like them. Conclusion. Humanity is faced with so many ills that we usually are unable to live freely, be it racism, miseducation, social inequality. These things hold us back and do so well because despite the harm they cause, we hold on to them instead of allowing them to fade out of our society. Although some people see the ills these things bring, it will take a unanimous decision involving everyone to completely eradicate them, and this is why it is so difficult to escape from their clutches. We are called upon by the message in this summary to be the voice of reason and always show a readiness to preserve good in all its form and be an agent for good in all that we do. Not everyone will want good to prevail, and in fact, it is more likely that the majority will be against the prevalence of the good you are chasing, but you cannot give up just for that. There will always be unfairness, and it is our duty to be the ones to stand up for those who are direct victims of this unfairness. Fight to make the world a better place, because if it is, everyone will benefit from it despite the fact that some of them fight it now. Always stand up for those who are part of the marginalized few and help them find a voice in the struggle for equality. Try this, make it a habit to help those who are needy, not for recognition or thanks, but out of the goodness of your heart.